and welcome to the Wellness with Juanita podcast. I'm your host, Juanita Nagai, an American living in Japan for 20 years. I've gone through some massive life changes and crises in my 20 years here. At its bleakest, I felt very isolated, alone, and helpless in the face of what was happening. I relied on alcohol and cigarettes to get through it the best I knew how, which worked until it didn't, and everything fell apart. I made it through with a little help from my friends, a fledgling mindfulness practice, and learning how to become my own strongest ally. I quit drinking and smoking, worked my way through my grief, found ways to forgive, created new connections, and started a regular exercise, meditation, and self-care routine. I've also become a national board certified health and wellness coach along the way, and developed a desire and passion to help others on their own personal journeys. This podcast is all about change, growth, healing yourself, learning how to get back up after life kicks you down, and exploring mindfulness and self-compassion as incredible tools available to each and every one of us to do just that. Hello, and welcome to the Wellness with Juanita podcast. I'm your host, Juanita Nagai, and today, again, I am coming to you from the great outdoors, so I apologize for any background noises. I'm hoping that the quality is good enough for a podcast. I brought myself outside today because it is just absolutely gorgeous weather. We're finally into October. The summer heat and humidity has finally broken here in the Kansai region of Japan. And I've just been reveling in it. I had plans to record my podcast today, but it was so beautiful out, and I thought, why not go outside? Take the work that you have to do outside, enjoy this weather, enjoy this life that you are building and have created. And so that's what I did. And I have been enjoying my scenic spot here at the top of the little hill at the local park, listening to the birds chirping, feeling the wind on my face, and just generally enjoying my morning. And it feels also appropriate that I am in this beautiful, scenic, supportive, nurturing spot in nature, because what I would like to talk about today is a little tender, and perhaps I could use the support and this natural setting to kind of hold some of the sweet and sentimental emotions and feelings that this topic can bring up. I have been sitting in a tender place within myself and contemplating younger versions of myself and thinking about some of the choices and things that I did in my youth that have admittedly all brought me to where I am now. And for that, I am infinitely appreciative and grateful that I am where I am now and I am who I am. I fully recognize that things would not be where they are now if things had not happened the way they did in the past. I think that what I have been kind of contemplating and almost kind of grappling with is something that is familiar, perhaps, and a kind of universal human thing. The fact that we wonder why we made the choices that we made. And this has come up, I think, especially prominently right now, partially because I piloted my Nourish program over the summer, and that is a program designed for people who would like to rebuild, rediscover, and relearn a healthy relationship with food and themselves. And in the course of that work, that came up. A member asked, why does it take so long for us to realize that we're hurting ourselves, that we're hurting our bodies? And it's a really great question. I think that even if your struggles are not necessarily with food, although a lot of us do find food and eating and habits around that one kind of socially acceptable place to find solace and to find a way to deal with the stresses of life. But even if food is not your thing, like me, and I was very upfront with the members in this group that food has never been my struggle, but I find the similarities, regardless of whatever your chosen escape hatch or way of dealing with the stresses of life or the kind of coping mechanism that you adopt, whether that is food or drugs or alcohol or work or sex or gambling or even other people's love and affection and validation. We all have some way that we are trying to cope and deal with the painful experiences and the stresses of life. And I think it's helpful, one, to recognize that, yes, we all have them, whatever they are. Some of us have more than one. I think ways of thinking also can be included in that group. Sometimes it's a coping mechanism. It's a way for us to feel better or to feel safer if we beat ourselves up before others have the opportunity to do so. If we're super judgmental and critical and harsh on ourselves, that is kind of beating others to the punch before they can be critical or judgmental or come down harshly on us. If we're doing it ourselves, then that's a way of kind of taking care of ourselves. It's a way that our mind has created for us to feel safe and supported and protected in some way, right? So, and that is what our minds are trying to do, our brains are trying to do. So, number one, we all have some kind of coping mechanism, some way that we learned often when we were very young to provide for ourselves or protect ourselves or create a sense of security or safety or just simply a way of dealing with the stresses of the world. Again, if it's an escape or a release, we all have something. That in itself, I think, can be a very liberating and illuminating thought. It's not just you. It's not just you and your problems. This is part of what it means to be human. I do think that if we are lucky enough to begin to explore what that means, if we're brave enough to be honest with the struggles and challenges we do have, and maybe how we have coped with them in the past, and maybe how they are no longer serving us, how those coping mechanisms maybe are something that we would like to now change. I think that that is the work of a lifetime, and it is our privilege as intelligent, mature adults to engage in this work and to be able to start to pull those threads apart and to be able to start to think about how we can change the things that we want to change and how we can learn how to take better care of ourselves and find more skillful ways to deal with the stresses and discomforts and diseases of life. So that is all a big kind of background setting of where this is all coming from. It came up during the Nourish pilot program, and we were discussing what are the habits that we would like to change? What are the things that we are doing that are no longer serving us? And bringing a lot of mindfulness to that and to that process. And so as the creator of that program, obviously I have done the practices and I have gone through the process of reckoning with the unskillful and the unhealthy behaviors I was engaged in for many, many years of my life, which were primarily drinking and smoking and trying to just escape and numb and push things away. And if you are listening to this podcast, chances are you have also followed along with my journey. And several years ago, I was able to find ways to stop drinking and to stop smoking and to start taking better care of myself. And this is an ongoing, emerging, cyclical, non-linear process. And now I am at this next level or this next stage of thinking about what it was that got me there in the first place. Exploring and considering why I ever went in that direction in the first place. And so I've been giving it a lot of thought. I have reached out to friends from my past, the people that I still could, that I'm still in touch with, close friends from college. I recently talked to a friend and mentor from high school. And I've been doing a lot of journaling. I've talked about this with my own coach. And it's something that I really have kind of been giving a lot of thought and energy and time to. It feels important to me to dig into those roots at this particular point in time. I think that the tragedies and the crises and the things that directly brought me to the path of learning about meditation and mindfulness and self-compassion and self-care, starting with my mother's death and then my husband moving to another prefecture and then losing our much wanted baby. All of those kind of recent history, heartbreaking and traumatic events, those all make sense to me. It makes sense to me why I chose to try and just numb out all of the really difficult, strong emotions with booze and cigarettes, because that's what I had always done. And so I feel like I have gone through a lot of the processing of those events and they fit into a box. It makes sense to me why I did the things that I do, even if I'm not necessarily proud of all of them, but it fits. It makes sense to me. Where I have been going recently is trying to make sense of the origin of it all, or the kind of beginning of it all. And that is why I have been exploring it in all of these ways. Basically, what I am trying to get to and where all of this has led me is back to self-compassion and to the simple but powerful notion of forgiveness. Can I forgive that younger, admittedly less experienced and less knowledgeable, let us say, version of myself? Can I accept that perhaps it's not ever going to make sense or fit together in a way that feels satisfactory to me? Or maybe the way that it makes sense and fits into place is when I am able to truly offer myself that forgiveness and that self-compassion. And it's a lot. It's been interesting to explore, to say the least, because it's hard and it's scary and it's embarrassing to really be that honest and vulnerable with yourself. And at least for me, to admit that some of the decisions and choices that I've made in my life were bad decisions and choices and mistakes. I think that there is a part of me that stands by, again, the choices and decisions I have made because they have led me to who I am and where I am now. But there is also another part of me that I am just now kind of giving space to breathe and speak, to say, you know, maybe you were just kind of young and stupid and really unsure of yourself and the world and your place in the world. And there were a lot of different factors that went into you doing the things that you did or didn't do. And I feel like that's kind of cryptic, maybe, but without going into too many specifics, I think it's admitting that I am me. I am a unique individual, a human being incarnate in this body at this particular time and place in the world and in history. And with it, all of those unique individual aspects of my personality and life and being. I was born to the parents I was born to and grew up in the small town that I did with those experiences and those people, and had my childhood and came to become the person that I am with my understanding of the world. And then I went off into the big wide world, which was completely different from everything I had ever known before. And that in itself is a big rupture and almost kind of, I don't want to say traumatic, but it's a hugely significant event. And so this simple acknowledgement that all of that is true, and that I'm not always going to be perfect, and I'm not always going to be making the wisest, smartest decisions, but they are the wisest, smartest decisions that I was capable of at that time, and that all of the past versions of me were doing the best that they knew how with what they had at the time. And that is really at the heart of this idea of forgiveness, that even the bad decisions felt like the right ones at the time. And it's a lot easier sitting here 30 years down the road to say what was good or bad, or to see how certain choices led to certain other situations. But it comes down to offering us that self-compassion that I'm always talking about. I was young and I was doing the best that I could with what I knew, and that is an infinitely human, universal experience. And so, can I be kind to that version of myself? Can I cut her some slack and admit that she was doing her best? And also, can I be kind to myself now and cut myself some slack with everything that I'm experiencing and processing and going through, trying to sort this all out? I think that there's this feeling that I carry that somehow I should have known better, or I'm smarter than that, or I'm stronger than that. There's almost a sense of extreme humility to say, yeah, I was just a really young, dumb kid. Like all of us are when we're young, dumb kids, right? That period and that time of life is what it is, and it's different for everybody, but that is what it was for me. And so I kind of wanted to talk about forgiveness in general today because it's something that I think is really hard for us, and it can be hard in all three directions. But one of my teachers, Jack Kornfield, talks about forgiveness, and I will link to his beautiful forgiveness meditation in the show notes so you can explore it for yourself if you'd like. So Jack has a forgiveness meditation that encompasses forgiveness in three different directions. One is asking for forgiveness for the harms that you have caused other people in your life. One is asking for forgiveness for the harms that you have done to yourself, the ways that you have hurt yourself. And I believe the last is offering forgiveness to those that have hurt you and harmed you in your life. And so I think it's so beautiful and so brilliant to combine all of these directions of forgiveness in the one practice, because it helps us to keep in mind and keep the perspective and recognize that forgiveness doesn't just mean forgiving others that have hurt us, or doesn't mean just learning to forgive ourselves, which is where I have been personally lately. It's also admitting and recognizing that we have harmed others and we have hurt others, and that we have hurt ourselves. It's both directions, right? I heard the quote once that forgiveness means letting go of all hope of a better past. And when I was grappling with forgiving others in the past, and that was a long, difficult process, because forgiveness does not mean accepting or condoning bad behavior or saying what has happened or the harm that was done to you is okay. But it is a way to forgive what has happened so that you are able to let it go, and so that that anger or pain or hurt or suffering is released out of your own heart. If you stay angry or resentful at someone that has harmed you in the past, even if it's completely justified and even if you have every reason to do so, you're truly only harming yourself. And I think so many of us can find lots of, hopefully not too many, but I think all of us can find examples in our past of people that did hurt us or people that have harmed us, maybe truly deeply. Maybe we're not even in contact with them anymore. But until we are able to find a way to forgive and let that go, it's only hurting ourselves. The other person is long gone out of our life, right? So that is the kind of work that I was more familiar with. And now I'm turning to this idea of learning to forgive myself and forgive the mistakes that I have made, forgive the ways that I have hurt myself, even if it was unintentional, even if I was making the best decisions and choices that I could at the time, admitting that I did hurt myself and that I did hurt others along the way is kind of where I'm at right now. And man, I have no idea if this is going to make sense or if this is a podcast, that will be interesting to other people or listeners. Maybe it's fitting that it feels like I've been kind of walking through thick muck because that's kind of what forgiveness and this work kind of feels like, is walking through some thick muck and trying to explore how to get out of the thick muck and where the path even could possibly be. If you have listened to this episode and you've come this far, chances are forgiveness is something you are at least curious about, if not longing for, or hoping to find a way to get to. There are so many forgiveness practices or different things that we can work with on that long, muck-filled, arduous path. I think when I was working towards forgiveness of others, one of the things that helped me the most, because I was angry and I was stuck and I was kind of firmly entrenched in this, I don't see how I can find a way to forgive them place. But I knew it was important for myself to find the way to do so. And the way that Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach talk about it in the meditations that I was doing at that time, they use the phrase, "To the extent that I am ready, I offer you forgiveness." Or, "To the extent that I am ready, I want to be able to one day offer you forgiveness." So they offered the option to start as far back as necessary. And that helped. That helped me. Starting with the intention to forgive, I believe, put me on the path to finding the way through, because the more that I did forgiveness meditations and forgiveness journaling exercises, or the more thought and energy and effort I put into that intent, saying, I want to find a way to forgive. I want to find a way forward. I want to find a way past this. I don't think that there was ever a particular day when it was like, oh, no, now forgiveness has been achieved. I do remember, though, at a certain point, that it had happened, that this black, kind of almost volcanic lava magma rock of hardness and all of the negative, angry, resentful feelings that had been lodged within me for so long, it had kind of melted and dissipated. It wasn't like there one day, gone the next. But at a certain point, I realized that it had dissolved and that it had left me. And it was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. The intention was there, and it eventually brought me through. Like that, the process happened, and it was very relieving, and I felt very grateful that it did work and that I was able to find forgiveness and I was able to find a way to let go of the past and all hope for a better past. What had happened and there was no changing that. But there was a way forward, and there was a way for me to look forward. So for my takeaway for this tender, muck-filled, contemplative, deep, and probably wandering and rambling podcast today, I will leave you with the amazing forgiveness meditation as led by Jack Kornfield. I will put that link in the show notes. I do encourage you to have a listen. If you want to search for it yourself on YouTube, I'm sure you can find a version that works for you. But I encourage you to do it more than once if you're serious about really finding that way through for yourself, finding a way forward. It's not a one and done. Most of this work is not. And if it's something that you're curious to explore and to really give it the time and energy and effort that you deserve, come back to it. Listen to it once a month or once a week, but come back to it. So if you've made it this far, I commend you. If you are curious about talking more or have questions, if I intrigued you but didn't make any sense, please feel free to reach out. Send me an email. You can always reach me via DM in my socials. If you are curious about the Nourish program that I mentioned at the beginning, this episode will come out October 15th. You still have a couple days to sign up for the next cohort, which will be beginning on October 22nd. Please let me know so that we can get you signed up right away. But as always, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, take care.